Powered by Riverside FM.
The one thing that perplexes me when we're talking about who's going to be QB2 is that reports have come out that the Minnesota Vikings are in discussions with Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill did not play last year. So now you're going to have your QB1, which is J.J. McCarthy, and I'm ecstatic about that. But J.J. McCarthy, during the regular season, got no regular season practice snaps. And now your quarterback, too, didn't have any regular season practice snaps as well. Like, I can't remember a time where a coaching staff or organizations didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on practice time and snaps. And again, this is not my industry. This is a Viking fan and a person that's been around sports all his life, a person that is coaching college basketball, that's interested in football. I would think practice matters. Snaps matters. So it seems like the two viable candidates for the Minnesota Vikings are Ryan Tannehill and Joe Flacco. So who would you choose, Ryan Tannehill or Joe Flacco? Ryan Tannehill is obviously a little bit younger than Joe Flacco, a little bit more mobile. I think in terms of value and physical attributes, you're going to get more out of Ryan Tannehill at this point in their career than you will Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is not a runaround guy. The advantage with bringing in a guy like Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco has kind of been there, done that. He's been to the pinnacle. He's been to the mountaintop of the NFL. And he won a Super Bowl, led a Ravens team to a Super Bowl and got himself a ring. Then more recently, when you look at the stock of Joe Flacco, his recent visits with the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm a little biased because UP Nation, a lot of you know that I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up as a Cleveland Browns fan. And the Cleveland Browns, there's still a part of me where the Cleveland Browns resonates in my heart. So I want to see them do well, although I'm not actively watching them every week like I used to. I want to see the Cleveland Browns do well. So I keep an eye on the Cleveland Browns. I'm sure you guys have teams like that maybe you're not a steadfast fan of that team, but maybe you grew up with the team, or maybe there's a team that you keep your eye on. That is the Cleveland Browns for me. So I'm a little biased, but Joe Flacco took a Cleveland Browns organization who I've said all along in many of my podcasts, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, the Cleveland Browns will suck the life out of you. They will suck the soul out of you. Bad mistakes, bad luck, bad contracts, missed signings, bad drafts, bad evaluations of players in the draft. I mean, if anything can go wrong in NFL football, the Cleveland Browns have probably done it or at least explored it. So for a guy like Joe Flacco to be able to come in and give the Browns one of their best years in decades, to take a franchise that is snake bit and has nothing but bad luck. Just take a look at the Deshaun Watson thing. It's terrible. It's terrible. And take them to the playoffs. That's an incredible feat. That is an incredible feat for Joe Flacco. So it's like if you go to the Cleveland Browns organization, to me, that's like boot camp. You know, in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, those of you that have served, thank you for your service. You come out a little bit better. You come out a little bit stronger. And for him to go into that organization and have success, again, we're not looking at Joe Flacco to come in and be a 2 to 3 year guy. We're looking at Joe Flacco to come in and possibly spell J.J. McCarthy just in case something happens. Now, Ryan Tannehill's not a scrub either. But the only thing that gives me pause about Ryan Tannehill is at the end of his tenure with the Titans, nobody was really itching to sign him for the amount of money that he wanted. So he had to take a year off. And I just don't like the taking a year off thing. I just don't like it. And it may not be a big deal because, again, I'm not an NFL coach. We're going to be asking a 22-year-old kid to take over our franchise and go into games and ball out, not having really any practice reps. So Ryan Tannehill is not going to be forced into play unless something happens to J.J. McCarthy. So eventually he's going to get those practice reps. Eventually he's going to get that practice time, get acclimated to the Vikings season, get acclimated to KOC's system, so on and so forth. So maybe that's not as important. But I think for what we need and the biggest, best insurance policy that we can get, in my opinion, is Joe Flacco. Now, the Minnesota Vikings, they have to be careful because I know there's some comp pick consideration as well. If you sign a guy like Joe Flacco early before the draft, he's going to count against you in terms of a compensatory pick. And so essentially you would be trading a fourth-round draft pick for Joe Flacco. So I understand the rush to not signing him because you want as many tradable assets as you can and you want as many draft picks as you can. And so if we have an opportunity to get a compensatory pick, that definitely comes into play. I completely understand. That's why I can see why the Vikings are in with Ryan Tannehill and having those type of discussions because he won't count against us when it comes to the compensatory picks. I get it. I totally get it. And so I will support the Ryan Tannehill signing because I know about the compensatory picks. But all things off the table, if you're just talking about talent, who's a better fit, I like Joe Flacco. But either pick between those two, I would support. Totally support. You got the veteran out there that could come in and help mentor a young J.J. McCarthy. My only deal is I just don't like the idea that Ryan Tannehill wasn't anywhere playing football last year. That is a pause for me because I think it's important. You're going to have two quarterbacks on your roster that didn't get a lot of reps last year. Put your thoughts in the comments. Who would you take? Flacco? Ryan Tannehill? Is there another guy out there, Trey Lance? I've gotten a couple of emails about Trey Lance. Would you take a chance on a guy like Trey Lance? Is it more important to have a mentor for J.J. McCarthy? Put it in the comments. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button, people. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please consider becoming a member. Those that become a member will be entered into a drawing to win a Minnesota Viking Winter Warriors jersey. You'll receive that right before the draft if you become a member of UP Nation. Please hit that like and subscribe button as well. This has been Unconventional Playbook. We will make sure, as always, to see you when we see you.